For those of you complaining about Mike Bobo, offensive coordinator Georgia, Stacey Searles, offensive line coach, for any of you complaining about Georgia's coaching staff, Kirby Smart not only doesn't want to hear it, but he doesn't hear it. He's not going to entertain that. And he talked about how he thinks he's got the best coaching staff in college football. He said that pretty firmly last week during spring practice. To recap, if you're not a Georgia fan, I'll recap it a little bit. Georgia regressed in 2024, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Things just weren't as good as they were the previous 3-4 years, right? And a lot of people associate that with Todd Monken. Some people associate that with Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. I'm here to tell you it's a combination of everything, and that it's not just one thing. And I think that it's personally. Now, I don't know if Mike Bobo is the best thing for Georgia. I don't think Kirby would have him around if he didn't think that. But I think it's naive to look back at 2024 and say, hey, that's Mike Bobo's fault. Hey, that's this person's fault. Hey, that's just Carson Beck's fault. To me, the whole thing just didn't work the way that people expect it to at Georgia. And Georgia's standards so high, and that's why you get some complaining and you get just kind of distaste for what happened. I'm here to tell you, the team just wasn't as good. They just weren't as good last year. All right, and I don't know if they're going to be better or worse this coming season. To me, it's still early. I've only gotten to see a little bit of practice. I don't know if they're going to let us back in there. But here's what Kirby Smart had to say. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post, delivering you Kirby Smart's message. I think that's part of what he uses us for. But I thought it was interesting, right? Recently, this whole conversation got stirred up with Paul Finebaum. And he talked about how you could go on Peachtree Street in Atlanta and find a better offensive coordinator than Mike Bobo. Really, really grabby statement there by Paul Finebaum. Kirby, there's a chance Kirby might not even saw it. I think he probably saw it. But this is what Kirby had to say about that. To be honest with you, I don't get into it much. I worked in a place for 10 years before I came here, and it's my 10th spring. So that's 20 years that I really don't pay much attention to anything outside. I've got a lot of confidence in this organization, the foundation we built. I've got the best staff in the country, and I have no doubt about that. I've got one of the most experienced SEC staffs there is. To be honest with you, there's a lot of confidence in that, and I have a lot of confidence in it. Big statement. That's not Kirby Smart sitting around saying, I think this is what we got. He's saying he knows. He says he has no doubt about it. That he looks around at the rest of the country, he sees that programs change a lot, and look, I think that he likes that this staff is built upon Georgia guys, right? There's a handful of them that have experience with Georgia in the past. James Coley, obviously making his second stint with Georgia. Mike Bobo, his second, third stint, if you count him as a player. Todd Hartley. There's a ton of people on this staff that care about Georgia in a deep way, and I think Kirby really likes that. But when you go through the list, you've got a Glenn Schumann, you've got a Travaris Robinson. The staff does have a lot of experience in this conference, and Kirby thinks that's the best thing. Quite frankly, college football has changed. We've written a lot about it. We've talked a lot about it, not just with the players, but coaching retention too. And coaching is changing kind of in reaction to all of the changes in college football. Coaching is changing along with it. You see Nick Saban, obviously some of these guys are older, but you see a Nick Saban bowing out at Alabama. You see at Virginia, Tony Bennett, a national championship winning coach, him bowing out. I was watching Fox Sports earlier. Tom Izzo was doing an interview with Colin Cowherd, and he talked about how the only reason he hasn't bowed out with all of these changes in collegiate athletics is because he's stubborn. All right, but you seeing kind of the older generation of coaches leave. Kirby was trained by these guys. Kirby was trained by the Bobby Bowden. He was mentored by the Nick Sabans of the world. So he is still a part of the old college football, the college football pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, right? It really just was a few years ago that things were that different, and it's changing. So retention in college football has changed. Now, back to the coaching staff portion of this. Kirby had a little bit more to say. Let me grab it here for you. This is what else he had to say about his coaching staff, and we can dive into it more after that. He goes, well, I could be sitting here before you last year on this exact day and have 4 new coaches, and there's a lot of positive about that. And in this, he's talking about how the coaching staff has not changed this season. He goes on to say there's a lot of positive about having everybody back. I think we've built our program around retention. I think we've got the most stable, not only staff, but stable organization in all of college football. I think that's what we've hung our hat on, is we have stability. We have retention. We have great foundation. We're built to last. We don't have to worry about year in, year out tons of change. I think this league will chew you up and spit you out. This league is brutal when you look across. I'm sitting at the SEC coaches meeting, and there's Mark Stoops. And we're the most tenured guys. I'm sorry, I botched that quote up. He goes, and then there's a lot that are in their first 3 or 4 years. Then you look at their stats, and there's tremendous amounts of turnover. Then you look at their rosters, and there's even more turnover. Who does the best job at retaining their players and coaches? I take a lot of pride in that, and I think that is one of our weapons. Well, Kirby talked about, like I said, this is not just a staff thing. He thinks that retention in the roster is also a huge advantage at Georgia. Now, the turnover has grown, right? Georgia, he said the other day, he thinks that it used to be around 23 to 25%, the yearly turnover, and now it's about 33%. So more players are moving in and out, right? Some of that is just Georgia had a lot of older players the last couple of years. Some of that is guys transferring out that maybe were unexpected, like a Damon Wilson going to Missouri. But I think that all of the things Kirby Smart is saying, there's 2 angles you can look at this. There's 2 or 3 angles you can look at this. One is, this is a response to the hate. This is a response to the doubt. Him going up on that podium the other day and saying, I have the best staff in college football. I think that we do the best job at this. I feel really good about all this. Part of it is a little bit of a response to the chirping fans. Some of y'all in the comments who are going to complain, that's your prerogative. Do what you need to do. If you feel that way, that's fine. It is a little bit my job to judge what's going on, and that's why I have this platform here. But it's also difficult for me to watch what happened last season and pinpoint it all on the coaching staff. When Carson Beck had a month where he just collapsed. When an offensive line underperforms and is dealing with injuries. When a running back room is dealing with injuries. When receivers are dropping passes. Some of that is just not on the coaching staff. Like I said, things crumbled in a way for Georgia, and they still went on to win the SEC championship. They still went on to bring a trophy to Athens, so it wasn't a total bust of a season, but the expectation is more. But I think that one angle is this is a response to all that. Kirby saying that. 2, the other thing is I think he really believes it. I don't really take Kirby for a liar. Maybe he's not always speaking the truth on there, but you don't just say... I don't think Mike Bobo needs a confidence boost. Okay, Mike Bobo's been doing this for a long time. Kirby's not going up there and saying those things just to reinforce that he believes in Mike Bobo. I just don't think that that's his angle there. I think he's just speaking the truth, and I think that it's Kirby saying, hey, look, I've been on the top of this college football mountain here for a few years, and I think that I'm doing a better job than everybody else. There's certainly a lot of confidence with what Kirby is saying. I mean, both of those long statements and just not caring about what people are saying on the outside world. Well, I don't necessarily completely agree with him there, because I do think he pays attention to what people are saying, and I do think that part of this is him saying, hey, like, stop complaining. It'll all be good. I want to say, to round this out, one last thing that I just think fans need to keep in mind. Give this another year, specifically on the Mike Bobo, on the Stacey Searles and all that. I truly think that there needs to be another year before harsh judgment can be passed. And I've said this a few times, and I'll say it more. All right? There were common denominators between 23 and 24, 2 very different teams. And Mike Bobo and Carson Beck specifically were on both of those. And 23 was very successful. 24 wasn't to the standard. And I am curious as to if it gets turned around with, look, a very different roster. Very different roster and a lot of new starters on this football team, and on offense, an offense that's going to look very, very different. I think people should be listening to Kirby on this one before they pass the harsh judgment. And we'll circle back to it a year from now. Thanks for watching.